When all hope is lost, there are still some things you can do in World of Tanks to still come out on top. And in today's replay, Zavix here is going to showcase exactly what that is. Now, this replay is showcasing, of course, the Concept 1B, and this is a very interesting tank that was basically one of those that can definitely be played very well if you can get a hold down in it, and it really does become one of the top performers for tier 9 as a heavy that can do everything that you want it to, especially when you get into a position like this on Berlin. Now, you see what happens when you get into these sort of positions, and with great accuracy you can put rounds into some of the places where a lot of the enemy tanks just will not have a clue as to how to get you out and get you dug out of these sort of positions. You can see with the AE phase 1, because of that kind of bulbous hull armour, you can still place rounds straight into it, albeit with heat ammunition. And of course that's exactly what Zavix here is managing to do every single round he's putting in. He is scoring a penetration, and unfortunately he does manage to get hit by the Centurion, but with the angling of his armour he manages to bounce one from the AE phase 1. And of course he can just continually place rounds, and this is where the Concept 1B can be so strong within the game when you're coming up against opponents like you're seeing here, where they're just trying to overexpose themselves to get shots on you and get adequate shots, because although when you're in a position like this sometimes, you know, you can maybe overexpose yourself, you don't have to with the Concept 1B because of the turret orientation, where you can essentially move down and be able to get shots into some of the positions where maybe other tanks wouldn't have been able to in a heavy tank like this, where you have this really well sloped armour, and of course the good gun depression the Concept 1B has over some of the other American heavies like the M103, which can be penned fairly reliably through the turret armour that it does have. And when you've got the pretty good accuracy and the consistent gun handling of the Concept 1B, you can just place these rounds into the weak points of a lot of the tanks that you're coming up against, such as the Centurion 7/1, unfortunately not managing to hit that inner drive wheel to pen. But in these sort of close-up engagements in a Concept 1B, you have pretty much everything that you need, and is basically just stopping the entire enemy team here from progressing or really doing much damage to this flank. Now, with the game coming into a bit of a stalemate, he's just waiting and waiting, and we can wait here in the Concept 1B because the turret armour is decent and because you have everything that you need. You don't really have to be super aggressive in some of these positions, because ultimately a lot of the times that people end up getting taken out within World of Tanks is because they force themselves to progress. Sometimes it is actually better to wait that extra minute to be able to get the shots as and when you need to into the opponents that you have to, will actually grant you a better game in the long run, and ultimately you can survive for a lot longer within the game, and therefore you're going to progress a lot faster, and you're going to ultimately do more damage and be more beneficial for your team. Obviously what you're seeing here is some great marksmanship. Zavix here has not really missed very many opponents, and that is really where it comes into clutch, is when you do have the good accuracy, when you are able to just fire at tanks multiple times in a minute. You know, when you have the DPM of the Concept 1B, maybe it wouldn't work in such a high alpha damage gun where maybe you're not really dealing too much damage, but with kind of the ability of Zavix here, he is able to do what he needs to do to get the job done and to progress. Talking about progressing, he is deciding to make a bit of a play here and to be a little bit more aggressive within this game. You know, he's been held down for long enough, and now he can use the gun depression of the tank to get into a position like this, where he can put shots into the side armour of the tanks using the gun depression and being able to really make it count. And you're seeing here the AE phase 1 kind of side scraping off of this building. Zavix here on 1456 hit points doesn't really have much kind of need to really push too hard, or really to kind of worry about the hit points that maybe he might take from one shot. Sometimes it can be worth it, and you're about to see that sometimes poking around the corner can be worth it to remove the AMX-65T there, and now he can just harass the enemy team, who can either look one way or the other, and ultimately that is where you have the significant advantage. Every single time that they make a little bit of a play, or maybe they turn one way, they're going to be getting taken out, or they're going to lose hit points from one side. So if Zavix here can take advantage of that and put rounds into the opponents as and when he needs to, then he can still have these really amazing games. And the E75 is definitely stuck in between a rock and a hard place here, or Zavix in a hard place I should say, and he loses the majority of his hit points for it. Now, we have that M3Y that we saw earlier, and he really is no match for the Concept 1B here. There's no real way that he's going to be able to come out on top, and with another round into the upper plate of the M3Y, he secures the kill. With the game developing, you can see that the enemy team have progressed all the way over on the southern side of the map, and that is really where the two maps kind of, or the map and the sides come into play as to whether or not who's going to win the game. And you can see here he is trying to kind of cross, and it is very difficult in this sort of scenario where you have to cross an open field. Obviously you don't want to be the one that's taking all of the hits, and when everyone's kind of setting up for these long range engagements, the Concept 1B can be a little bit painful to play, since the hull armour of the tank when exposed can be very, very annoying, and sometimes the side armour can also be penned very reliably, because ultimately it's an American heavy, and we all know exactly what American heavy side armour is like, and so yeah, it can be difficult. However, Zavix here, knowing exactly that the long range engagements aren't exactly what the tank is probably preferable towards, then he's going to take a bit more of an aggressive stance, and now you see him pushing up, using the valley to kind of put some areas in between him and the opponents that are camping on the ridge lines on the other side of the map. And this is where the kind of the best players come out, and where the difference between maybe sitting in one position that maybe isn't necessarily 100% effective for your tank can be a negative, and why Zavix can actually take advantage of this and be able to get the shots in and when he needs to. And of course, with the Scorpion G coming around the corner, he can place a round, securing the penetration and also tracking the Scorpion G, forcing the Scorpion to use his repair kit there. And now he's aiming at the SU-101, getting both of those tanks that could chunk off lots and lots of his hit points are definitely something he needs to do. And now that he's secured both the kills on of those tanks right there, he can now progress onto the other tanks that have progressed on the southwestern side of the map, and potentially move their way over to the west side of the map in F3 and F2 area. You don't really know how far they've gone, maybe they've crossed, you don't know entirely, but that's something that Zavix will probably find out in this game. Obviously, the one annoying factor is the LT-432, who's keeping all of his team lit up, who sat inside the building there, maintaining this annoying proxy range that the LT-432 can do, because it is such a low profile tank, and getting a shot into the bunker there is very difficult without actually having to fully expose yourself and go around the other side of the map. And so this is where Zavix really uses what the best thing about the Concept 1B tank is, that using that turret armor that the tank gets to be able to kind of take a position that's going to benefit his team, rather than just kind of using what maybe most people would do, and that's kind of waiting and just basically sitting behind. He's going to use the wreck of the dead CS here to be able to get himself into a nicer position, so he can hopefully play some rounds into the necessary opponents. And you can see here with the Type 61, the Renegade and the TS5 all camping the ridgeline, there's not much he can do. Obviously very slim shots, probably not going to do it, and with only 4 rounds you have to make every single one count, otherwise he's going to be left high and dry with absolutely zero ammunition. That's one shot that he misses there, and with 8,000 damage done, he is really having the game of his life, really. And with another shot, 8,545 damage done in this TN9 American heavy tank can mean the whole difference between, if you're trying to go for your marks, maybe if he was on a 90%, it would get him up significantly. These are the sort of games that you're wanting if you're trying to mark any of your tanks, and hopefully, just hopefully, he can do that in this game. Type 61 only manages to track him as he progresses forward, and with only 2 heat rounds left, it could be curtains for Zavix here if the inevitable does happen and he does run out of ammunition. And with a Object 430 and a TS5 left alive, not particularly the nicest tanks to come up against if you are without any ammunition. Now, granted, Zavix here does have a pretty meaty tank. You know, you could potentially ram the opponents, and maybe we'll see that within this game, but he does need to make sure he is being a little bit careful. And with the TS5 here coming up, puts a nice round with the heat into him right there. Now, TS5 has a little bit of a problem here, since the hull armour of the tank is well hidden, and now he is completely out of ammunition. It's up to the Skoda T56 on his team to be able to help him out here and really come away with the victory, and then progress potentially into the Object 430, acting as a meat shield for his team, having done 9,203 damage within this game in what might be one of the best Concept 1B games that I've ever seen in World of Tanks, and it really is an amazing result for Zavix here. And I really thank him for uploading it onto the What Replay site as he progresses now towards the Object 430, who's being harassed by a T92, and with 876 hit points it really doesn't matter for Zavix here with 0 ammunition and the final ramming damage kill on the Object 430, winning the game and of course being the top dog of the team. 9,237 damage. That is an unbelievable result for the Concept 1B, and of course well done to Zavix here for showcasing that on the What Replay site. Of course, if you want to play like Zavix here, you have to think about positioning, making sure that your tank is in the right place, and of course making sure that when you don't have ammunition you can help out your team regardless anyway, with the final ramming damage kill there at the end of the game. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to check out other great gameplay on World of Tanks, make sure to subscribe to the channel and check out this video on screen, and I hope that you'll join me there. Goodbye.